Hello, good evening. I am Ajit Kumar Jha, editor of the Public Global and CEO of the Power Pixar. And today I wanted to focus on the after effects, or rather the political effects of Operation Sindhur. Uh, what has happened post Operation Sindhur in India? And what I wanted to zero on is the fact that Operation Sindhur has helped the BJP, a very big advantage to the BJP. Why? Because Operation Sindhur has helped the BJP in changing the ideological axis of India's uh, political divide or ideological divide. Uh, before, let's say, uh, from post sort of election 2024, let's track from there. Election 2024, we saw the big fight between what one would call the Kamandal versus the Mandal, Hindutva sort of ideology of the BJP versus the Mandal logic that Rahul Gandhi had been pushing through the caste survey, protection of the constitution, especially protection of reservation for Dalits, for backwards, for other communities, the Pichhada, the PDA that they call these days, Pichhada Dalit Alpsankyak. So Rahul Gandhi was basically zeroing on that, and he was arguing that the BJP wanted 400 seats in order to change the constitution to get rid of reservation. So that had become the ideological divide in the country, as I said. Hindutva, especially the Ram Mandir that the BJP was pushing right before Lok Sabha 2024, and Rahul Gandhi and the India Bloc, along with him, were pushing for the caste survey, caste reservation. Now, that kind of made Hindutva lose its what one would call the dominance it had, electoral dominance it had in 2014 and 2019. And in 2024, we saw BJP losing its Lok Sabha seats down to 240 from, let's say, more than 320 plus. So that loss of almost about 60 to 70 seats that the BJP underwent in 2024, especially that we saw heavy losses of the BJP Lok Sabha in Uttar Pradesh, in Rajasthan and Maharashtra, that made the BJP rethink. And part of the rethink, of course, was that the BJP had distanced itself from the RSS. So we saw in subsequent assembly elections, for example, in Haryana, in Maharashtra, even in Jammu and Kashmir, they tried even in Jharkhand, but it didn't work. So the BJP was trying to sort of ally back with the RSS, trying to become close to the RSS. But they had forgotten what had got the BJP a massive surge, or perhaps the highest ever number of seats, was in 2019. And that was the surgical strike against Pakistan following Balakot. And they basically replicated that this time. In fact, in a way, and it is very sad that the terror attack on Pahalgam, where almost 26 Hindus were killed. One person was of Nepali origin, but the rest were sort of killed in a gruesome manner. And not only gruesome, the entire act was by the terrorists from Pakistan was reprehensible, abominable. And that is what the BJP then basically used to bring about Operation Sindhur. And via Operation Sindhur, it sort of carefully and sort of managed this entire what one would call a defensive yet offensive attack um, against Pakistan by attacking the terror networks for the first time. 9 of them. I mean, I have done a few videos on that. Most of you are aware of that. And later on, after Pakistan responded by attacking civilians across the border, then India went ahead and attacked the military sites, to almost a dozen of those. In fact, it seems a consequence of that was a nuclear leak from one of the Pakistani sites, which forced, it seems, the Pakistanis to ask for a ceasefire. At the DGMO of Pakistan called the Indian DGMO twice, and then the ceasefire talks began. Now, of course, we saw another player here, especially Donald Trump, the US president, claiming that it was him who had basically become the umpire between India and Pakistan. Remember that tweet he made, which was rather controversial because he claimed that US was the arbitrator, the umpire, which brought about the ceasefire. And he also argued that the peace talks should be done in a neutral territory, outside India and Pakistan. And that India did not like, because India has always agreed that India versus Pakistan conflict is essentially a bilateral issue according to the template laid down in the Shimla Pact. And therefore, we saw some distancing by India against the US presidential Donald Trump's remark. But what is interesting is that Operation Sindhur, and the choice of the name Operation Sindhur, because it's very symbolic. It's almost like saying, that that Pakistan, the terrorists in Pakistan had tried to rob the Sindhur of our women, and we will fight back. So it's in a way, some people would say it's very patriarchal, but others would argue symbolically, it's like saving our women, our mataon and behno, as Modi ji said later on in his speech. So that, I think, reverberated with the people, and we have seen the whole ideological axis shifting. And the irony is that the opposition parties, the Congress, the various India Bloc parties, even the left parties, most of them has ended up supporting the government on this issue, because I think it was connected with the issue of terror, brutal terror against innocent civilians. And second, sort of in defense, in order to stop future terror, India responded the attack against Pakistan. So opposition parties ended up supporting that. And that has led to a strange type of situation where the BJP has the ideological hegemony once more, what it had lost in its fight on the issue of Hindutva versus the Mandal, or Kamandal versus Mandal. What it had lost, what we saw in the Lok Sabha, it has regained in a massive way. In fact, the situation today is very similar to the situation of 2019 post Balakot. We saw the kind of the popularity of the BJP in that Lok Sabha election, and it's a similar situation right now. The opposition have bound itself in such a way that it doesn't know how to fight this, what one would call nationalism, or what the opposition critics would call muscular nationalism, ultra-nationalism, but it doesn't know how to distance itself from that, because none of the opposition parties, maybe with the exception of the CPIML to some extent. That's the only party. And some civil rights groups which argued that the response to terrorism should not be war, but should have been diplomacy. And they, of course, gave the example of how Dr. Manmohan Singh had brought this issue of when Pakistan had asked for evidence, the way he used the diplomacy, that famous case where one of the terrorists were caught and then he was brought back and then he was tried in India. So that had convinced the world that India had peacefully fought terror attacks. So none of the political parties in India ended up arguing for that position. The example was Kasab, if you remember. But none of the political parties argued. They went along and played the game of nationalism. And therefore, the BJP seems to have, as I said, redefined via Operation Sindhur the ideological axis of this country on the issue of nationalism, which is a more powerful and more modern, what one would call, notion compared to, let's say, using religion to, unite the country. So uniting the country on the basis of nationalism is a very powerful instrument, and it has been used all over the world. The history of the world is actually the history of raising the issue of nationalism, especially during wartime, and especially it is very potent in its use against terror. Now, from there, let me point out that the BJP asked for a parliamentary delegation, and the parliamentary delegation would go around the world arguing how India had India's zero tolerance policy towards terror and how India conducted itself. And the BJP asked Kiren Rijiju, in this case, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, asked Rahul Gandhi to provide names. And in fact, the Congress provided 4 names. The Congress provided the names of Anand Sharma, former cabinet minister, Gaurav Gogoi, deputy leader of the Lok Sabha, Syed Nasir Hussain, Rajya Sabha MP, and Raja Brar, Lok Sabha MP. But look at what the BJP ended up doing. It requested the leader of the opposition to provide the names, but it ended up, it said that these 4 names were questionable, quote unquote questionable, and ended up striking against them. And then they formed a parliamentary committee of 7 MPs. None of the 4 that the Congress suggested were taken in that. In fact, the Congress MP that the BJP chose right now is the most controversial in many ways, Shashi Tharoor. Now, Shashi Tharoor, of course, is a 4-time MP from Kerala, he has worked for the United Nations. He's very articulate. He's very good. He's a great speaker. He knows international affairs very well. Along with him, the BJP has selected other party MPs, Ravi Shankar Prasad, former minister from Bihar, Bejanta Panda, the MP from BJP MP from Orissa, Sanjay Jha, Sanjay Kumar Jha, Janata Dal United President, Kanimozi Karunanidhi, the DMK Member of Parliament, Supriya Sule, NCP, Sharad Pawar, MP, and Shrikant Shinde. Now, all of these names, one would argue, are very good. They are very articulate. But let's get back to Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor had been all along, in a way, peddling the BJP's ideological stand on the issue of Operation Sindhur, praising the Prime Minister, praising the way BJP had conducted itself. And the Congress party had distanced itself from Shashi Tharoor's statement, saying that, in fact, the Congress argued that this was Shashi Tharoor's personal opinion, and everyone knows that at stake is the next year Kerala Assembly election, because Shashi Tharoor is gunning to be the chief ministerial candidate from the Congress party, whereas the Congress has not agreed over the name of Shashi Tharoor. In fact, there has been all kinds of stories leaking about the fact, speculations that Shashi Tharoor might actually leave the Congress and move over to the BJP. You know, he has been 4 times MP, as I said, and he has been a critic in the past. If you remember, he contested the Congress presidentship against Mallikarjun Kharge and lost. He was also member of that 33 dissident group within the party. Now, he's very good, no doubt about that. Individually, in terms of merit, he's probably the best person to lead the team. But given the fact that he is in a way, half his foot is outside the door, and given the fact that the Congress is uncomfortable and none of the names that the Congress suggested were put in the committee, is obviously unfair for the main opposition party. But the politics continues, and the future, we will see that in the Bihar elections that is going to take place. That's the first assembly election in the autumn of this year. And in that, we will see how this ideological hegemony that the BJP has got, the new nationalism, if you want to call it, the new muscular nationalism that the BJP has displayed in Operation Sindhur, how that will provide a massive advantage to the BJP, that we will do in subsequent videos. But let me finally make this point, that the BJP today is in the same position pre-2019, after that surgical strike against after post Balakot. The BJP was riding the sort of tide. You know, it was it got the highest number of seats post in 2019, and it is a similar, one would call a more successful Operation Sindhur that has brought that has united India under, as I claim, a very muscular nationalism. And the opposition parties, majority of the opposition parties in the country, Congress and the rest of the India alliance, they do not know how to fight this back. I'll end the video here. Thank you very much. And we will make more videos on this issue as it unfolds. Thank you.